A real political storm is brewing in Washington today. Just days ago, leaked documents surfaced online that, according to journalists from the Financial Times and Spain's El País, citing high-ranking insiders in the Mexican government, confirmed that Mexico is holding secret talks with Beijing about obtaining a special BRICS partnership status. This does not concern formal membership, at least not yet, but the very idea of deep integration of the United States' Latin American neighbor into an architecture built by China, Russia, India, and other countries came as a thunderbolt for Donald Trump's circle. The situation looks like a strategic challenge. If confirmed, right on the US border, there would be a state effectively drawn into China's sphere of influence. According to Bloomberg analysts, this is no longer just a diplomatic maneuver, but a demonstrative lever of pressure on the White House, a signal to Trump that his trade wars and tariff policy are starting to backfire. The leaked documents, as reported by Reuters Mexico, state directly that the negotiations had been taking place for the past 6 months in a closed format, with the participation of Chinese officials from the Ministry of Commerce and Mexican deputy ministers of the economy. According to sources close to President Claudia Sheinbaum's office, Mexico is considering not only trade and investment agreements, but also coordination with China in energy, logistics, and even digital technologies. For Mexico, this is a chance to break free from total dependence on the United States. For China, it is an opportunity to establish a foothold in North America. And for Trump, it is a nightmare scenario for which he has no ready strategy. Experts at the Council on Foreign Relations point out that while Trump quarrels with traditional allies, Canada, Germany, Japan, China is methodically opening doors to those once considered geopolitical adversaries. The example of India showed that Beijing knows how to transform tense relations into a cooperation for benefit format, and now it can apply the same model to Mexico. Insiders in Beijing say that the partnership proposal had been in preparation for more than a year, and for Xi Jinping, it represents a strategic strike at the very heart of the US geopolitical system. For the first time, a country in America's immediate neighborhood may become tied to BRICS, not through formal declarations, but through real mechanisms of integration. The situation is further complicated by the fact that Mexico's economy is deeply bound to the United States. According to the Wall Street Journal, more than 80% of Mexican exports head north to US states. Yet at the same time, China has been steadily increasing its investments in Mexico's industry for several years, especially in the automotive and electronics sectors. In 2023, according to Financial Times estimates, direct Chinese investments in Mexico's high-tech sector exceeded $10 billion, and it is now clear that Beijing is ready to convert economic influence into political influence. In the White House, this is being called a national security threat, and Trump's advisors privately admit that the leak caught them off guard. One Politico source noted, "If Mexico truly falls into the BRICS orbit, it will be a strategic defeat for Trump, comparable to losing an ally during the Cold War." Washington is now frantically searching for answers. Trump has demanded that the Treasury and State Department prepare a list of possible sanctions aimed at companies participating in potential projects with China. But as Brookings Institution experts note, the US does not have many levers of pressure, since overly harsh measures would also hit American businesses operating in Mexico. Major car makers such as General Motors and Ford use Mexico as a key manufacturing hub, and if relations sour, this could trigger massive supply chain disruptions. China, by contrast, is acting subtly and deliberately. According to Xinhua, Beijing is convinced that the current moment, when the United States is weakened by internal divisions and burdened by tariff wars, is the right time to expand its network of strategic partnerships. Mexico's participation in BRICS, even if informal, would be a crucial symbolic step. For the first time, a geographically close neighbor of the United States would signal its readiness to play by rules proposed by Beijing rather than Washington. In Mexico City, the explanation is straightforward. Trump's policies have placed the country in a vulnerable position. New tariffs on steel, aluminum, and agricultural products have hurt Mexican exporters, and the threat to restrict remittances from migrants, which make up a significant portion of family budgets in Mexico, was the last straw. According to El Financiero experts, negotiations with China are a signal to the White House. Mexico will no longer be held hostage to America's will. Analysts are now asking, what comes next? If Mexico obtains BRICS partnership status, The Economist suggests the next steps could include discussions about partial participation in Belt and Road projects, integration into Yuan-based payment systems, and the creation of joint energy hubs. This would not mean an immediate break with the United States, but Washington would find itself with a Trojan horse of Chinese influence right at its doorstep. In the corridors of the U.S. Congress, words like Trump's diplomatic disaster are already being voiced. Democrats accuse him of pursuing protectionist and heavy-handed policies that have driven America's closest neighbor to seek refuge in China's embrace. Republicans, meanwhile, try to defend the president by claiming that Mexico is blackmailing the United States to extract better terms. But even they admit the situation is extremely troubling. Meanwhile, Mexico officially denies the talks. President Sheinbaum's office declared that no formal consultations with China on BRICS membership are taking place. However, as Associated Press highlighted, the tone of the statement was too cautious, and the wording left room for interpretation. This is why the leak caused such a sensation. If true, the United States risks facing an unprecedented challenge right on its border. If not, the mere existence of such rumors already damages Trump's image, showing that his policies are pushing allies to seek support in China. In any case, as the New York Times notes, the mere possibility that Mexico is considering cooperation with BRICS shows that the international order is changing rapidly, and the United States can no longer take its leadership for granted. Experts are paying special attention to how other BRICS countries might react to a possible Mexico-China rapprochement. According to Hindustan Times, India has already expressed cautious interest in expanding the format beyond traditional participants, especially when it comes to countries that could serve as strategic footholds for entering new markets. For New Delhi, Mexico is not only a partner in agriculture and pharmaceuticals, but also a key to strengthening influence in the Western Hemisphere. Brazil, for its part, according to Folha de S. Paulo, could become Mexico's main connector within the bloc. President Lula da Silva has long promoted the idea of transforming BRICS into a southern pole of the global economy, and the addition of a major Latin American economy as a partner would give his project additional weight. Washington understands the consequences will be enormous. Analysts at Rand Corporation estimate that if Mexico even partially participates in BRICS projects, the United States will find itself in a situation where its own trade corridor, the USMCA, begins to unravel. Investors would see alternative supply routes, while yuan-based transactions could undermine the dollar's position in the region. This could become the very tectonic shift that the International Monetary Fund warned about in its report several years ago. That is why the question of the Mexican factor now stands at the center of attention, not only in the White House, but also in the Kremlin, in New Delhi, in Brasilia, and of course, in Beijing. If the rumors prove true, the world will witness a new reality taking shape right on America's doorstep. Mexico transforming from Washington's junior partner into an independent player, ready to balance between two centers of power, the United States and China. And this is no longer just a diplomatic sensation. It is the beginning of a new stage in the struggle for the future of the world order.